Depression is a romance. Von Trier understands this, as we've long suspected he did, and Melancholia is his attempt to express insight he gained about his own psyche, his own romances with the treacherous beauty of annihilation. Ostensibly, this is a film about the end of the world, as brought on by our planet's collision with another planet moving through our solar system, or us through its. I'm never sure which it is, and neither is the film, really. It's not about astrophysics. It's about the trajectories of our characters, and not the celestial bodies that are guiding their lives. First, we have Justine. Poor Justine. She has everything life could hope to offer. She has a good job. She's marrying a good husband, a handsome man. You could say Michael, played by Alexander Skarsgård, has good fundamentals. Looks, job, pedigree. Justine is a princess in a fairy story, getting married in an idyllic manor house to the man of her dreams. Before the end of the night, she will lose everything and fuck a stranger on the golf course. No matter how good things are for Justine, she never feels right inside, and she manages to isolate herself from everyone who loves her. The one time she seems to reach out for help in the film, both her parents, insufferable in their own regards, reject her. The night of her disastrous wedding, she sees Melancholia for the first time. She sees the cosmic force that is so beyond her control, and somehow identifies with it. Her romance begins. We hear the strains of Tristan and Isolde, perhaps the greatest romantic music ever composed, whenever Justine stares longingly up at it. Transfixed, she has become the lover of doom. She embraces death. Feelings that cripple and terrify most become her ally. They become a source of pleasure for her, an extreme of human experience. Her interaction with the planet is erotic. Von Trier, as I understand it, named her for the Marquis de Sade's Justine. And Justine is represented in the film by the planet Melancholia. Claire, played by Charlotte Gainsbourg, is the long-suffering sister of Justine. The majority of her suffering is due to having to continually pick up after her, emotionally, and continue to support her. She's weary of Justine's attitude and her inability to embrace happiness. Claire is happily married to John, played by Kiefer Sutherland, a rational man of science who believes the planet will not strike the Earth but merely pass by. They have a son together, Leo, a quiet and seemingly lonely boy in a world where all the adults are too busy dealing with adult problems to notice. Claire wants Justine to just get over it, get on her feet. Their relationship puts so much strain on her marriage and the rest of their family, yet she feels obligated to stay by her sister and not leave her alone. In the film, Claire is represented by the son. She is Justine as a happy, normal adult. She represents hope. And finally, we have little Leo, a young boy who spends much of his time with his father, playing with telescopes and anticipating the coming of Melancholia with a childlike excitement and wonder. Of all the characters in the films, he bonds best with Justine because he never judges her. He's a child. He sees things as a child does. As the film progresses, though, we can see that Leo understands much more than we give him credit for. Leo becomes the force that eventually leads both women to cast aside their selfish needs and protect him in the end. Leo is represented in the film by the moon, which is half eclipsed in darkness. To me, this represents the notion that children walk between both worlds, in the light and in the dark. The film essentially turns on the relationships between these characters and how they all grapple with the impending extinction of all life on the planet. And as Justine brings up in the film, possibly all the life in the entire universe. Extinguished, wiped out in a flash. The entirety of our struggles and triumphs as a species. The entirety of the mechanism which is perhaps the only means the universe even has of observing itself. Gone. Space dust. Depression is a romance, and this is why my reading of the film comes in. There are certainly other opinions out there on it, but this is mine, and the reason the film was so intensely personal for me. It captures perfectly, for me, what depression feels like. A doomed love affair with something you feel an inevitable contact with, and you know that inevitable contact may mean your own extinction. Your brain got wired up wrong somewhere along the way. Blame your parents, blame your ex-wife, more likely blame genetic circumstances that made the choice before you ever conceived of choosing anything. The point is this: wires in your brain are all messed up, and suddenly things that make you sad also give you this weird pleasure, this comfort. You become drawn to the things that continue to give you these feelings. You got your Eros and your Thanatos all mixed up, and as awful as all that is, it's the only thing you really know. You chase extremes of experience, of emotion, so you can continue to get that little rush you get from flirting with death and disaster. There's a religious fatalism to all of it, that once you embrace becomes liberating in its own way. Once you accept the planet is hurtling towards you, ready to render everything, the sum of human experience, null and void. Everything else becomes kind of trivial, doesn't it? It's almost all you can do but sit there and stare in the face of this disaster rushing at you, this cosmic force you have no hope of stopping. Abandonment of hope is what led Justine to fuck a stranger on her wedding night. A need to do something dangerous, potentially destructive to heighten her experience. It's what led her to bathe naked in the rays of the oncoming planet, its eerie glow meaning certain doom, destruction, obliteration, as beauteous, orgasmic acts. Von Trier films planets colliding like two lovers meeting in a crashing embrace that destroys both, consumes them utterly in fire and terrible pressure. This is the second way in which he has captured depression so horribly accurately. As much as we love our sadness, our dramatic highs, our danger and destruction, there's a fact that lingers. This will kill us eventually. The way our brains are wired, this love affair we are pursuing with depression will be the thing that ends our lives. I'm going to read a bit from a quote from another film. I think it just sums up kind of how I'm feeling about this. So, and the truth is, I feel so angry, and the truth is, I feel so fucking sad, and the truth is, I felt so fucking hurt for so fucking long, and for just as long as I've been pretending I'm okay, just to get along, just for, I don't know why. Maybe because no one wants to hear about my misery, because they have their own. Well, fuck everybody. Amen. And that's from Charlie Kaufman's Synecdoche, New York. Just fits in well, I think, with where I'm going with this. I don't think we talk enough about things like depression. I know with me, it's probably because a lot of the things in the quote I just read. You know, I don't want to bother people. I don't want to feel like a fool. I don't want to embarrass myself. But I did want to use the platform of the show to change that and tell other people that it's okay. We can talk about these things, and maybe doing it is helpful. Maybe doing it will make someone feel better. Maybe it will lead somebody down the road to some kind of recovery. I have no idea. What I do know is this. I know how well Von Trier portrays depression here because it's true to my own experience. I've felt like Justine. I've acted like Justine. I've done awful self-destructive things in my life, just like Justine. I've hurt people who have done nothing but good in my life and stood by me, like poor suffering Claire. I've been a self-absorbed, spoiled bitch, just like Justine. And like Justine, I romance with depression, and it's almost impossible to leave it behind. And like Justine, the odds are good I will be obliterated by the object of my affection. The statistics tell a clear story. They paint that killer planet, the beautiful destroyer, into the scene. Major depression accounts for 25% of all suicides. With a history of prior attempts, my odds increase. Suicide is the fourth leading cause of death worldwide. In my home province, more men my age will commit suicide than die in car crashes. But put suicide aside a moment, let's just talk increased risk from alcoholism, drug abuse, and other risky behavior associated with depression. In a very real sense, melancholia very much is that cosmic force of destruction hurtling at us. Nothing seems capable of changing this course of destiny here. Wealth, success, attractive and supportive mates, and family all fail Justine in this movie. What remains unexplored by the film is what other methods may have saved her, may have changed the course of melancholia. I don't honestly know that there is anything that could pull that celestial calamity out of its inevitable death waltz, and there is something to be said for her stoic acceptance of her fate, a monk-like power she achieves through loss of hope. Two final notes about this film. Number one is I'm glad that it wasn't afraid to be outlandish and risk being silly. Depression is goddamn silly sometimes. It makes you do silly things and behave in absurd ways. That the film let that go on was impressive. I mean, come on, you can't be all I flirt with death and not have people looking at you like you wear a goofy pirate shirt and converse mostly with a skull in your hand. It's fucking silly shit. And number two, imagine attempting to just will away the influence of the people we love. Depression is a love affair. Walking away is not easy. For those of us locked in the grip of that dance, of that sweet romance with oblivion, I have to hope there's something out there that can help us. The charms of the dead wear thin on me. I'm getting old. I'm getting tired of my own bullshit. I want to have some good things in my life and have the people in it feel like they aren't trapped in some living nightmare. I want to learn how to move a planet ever so slightly off course. To feel just the sting of the heat of it on my face as it passes instead of smashing me to atoms. I want my cake and I want to eat it too. I want to bring back artifacts from the land of the dead. I want a three-way with Eros and Thanatos forever. I want to live. I just don't know how. And that's it.
Wow, Dave. Well, it's interesting to me that you put depression or define depression in a romantic way. You refer to it as a love affair. And, it's interesting to me to think about that because, I mean, is there this, I guess, selfish happiness to an individual during a state of depression? Is there?
There can be. I mean, there's definitely some times where you're just like, aha, fuck everybody, I'm alone in my room. Fuck all of you,
Right.
And you sort of, it's true. Your brain gets wired to enjoy things that I don't think other people really would, which is really, it's really odd. It really screws with you.
Max, you want to come in on this?
Well, the first thing I'm thinking is I've never been to a self-help group, and this feels like it. It feels like I have finally found someone who can beautifully speak my own brain, the shit that goes on in my brain, my whole 42 years of life. And when I learned that Dave was only 34 and he's only been suffering for 34 years, I was like, there's hope yet, man. This could all turn around, And then I started to think, I just found out that Dave has 3 children. So how does that play into his romance with depression?
Yeah. That's the hardest part of it, right? Because in a way, they're probably the biggest factor in any decision that you make, right? So when things are really rough, they're good to have around. They're good to have around because they usually serve a purpose of reminding me anyway that it's quite so awful, or
But your boys are much more to you, Dave. Your boys are much more to you than temporary distractions from the pain, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's no question. It's not just like I'm not totally, self-absorbed and all that. So yeah, totally.
Which is surprising considering that I think you're a really incredible artist. So how you manage to write for Fangoria, be a father to 3, be a husband, and then do what you do for the cutting room, and God knows what do you play hockey up there? I don't know what else you do.
No, I never played.
I mean, I don't know how it all manages to work out, but I'm glad it works out in your favor. Tom, is it weird hearing shit this heavy for you?
No. I mean, listen, I think I suffer from depression just like as heavily even as Dave mentioned in his intro to the film that we're going to discuss here. This is why this is why I drink a lot. I drink a lot to escape, to try to try to get away from the depression.
Yeah.
I as I've gotten older, I think at certain times I overeat, which just adds a lot more to my depressive state. It's not heavy at all. It's not heavy at all to me. I wish that I talked more about it. I wish I was more open about how down I am most of the time. I think that generally when somebody asks me how I'm doing, I normally give them the exact opposite of how I'm really feeling.
Right.
Like everything's terrific. This is going well. And you know what? It's just really not like that at all. I'm very disappointed in a lot of things. Not even, I mean, with myself, yeah, I'm disappointed in a lot of things about myself, but I'm just disappointed in general, about the things that I see. And I'm aware, I'm like, my eyes are open and I watch behavior. I watch people and I try to pay attention to them. And it just really puts me in a more depressive state. just to look and see what's out there and how we're handling things. And it's really, really dark to me, Max. It really is. And I'm, and I'm starting to feel sad.
No, you should feel glad because you're able to let it fucking out and talk to these three clowns.
I know.
I mean, seriously, Dave, like.
Well, I'm sitting at a bar this weekend with Joe Christiana, and he brings something up about me. He's like, Tom, you're sharp.
Oh, you need to do the Joe voice, Tom.
Hey, Tom, you're a real sharp guy, and you're really smart. You should be doing a lot better for yourself. And I'm just like thinking to myself,
that's not what I said.
Yeah, man. You were. No,
yeah,
you were saying that, Joe. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, dude, I'm like 10 drinks into the evening. And that's all life is to me sometimes, just being 10 drinks into the evening. And I'm happy with that. It's the one thing that I think makes me happy.
I didn't say that you should be doing better for yourself, but I feel sometimes, Tom, that you feel, and that's what you're hearing. And so that's perfectly in line with what I'm talking about. And I don't want to get too far off the tangent here, but I feel like sometimes you don't have a lot of, you have insecurities and you don't have a lot of a feeling of self-worth. And sometimes I just want to remind you that, look, you have a lot going for you. And I see you get bummed out sometimes, and I worry about you because I love you. And I think that sometimes when I see you, I don't see you very often. You know what I mean? So, when I'm driving down there, I'm like, this is, you don't get a lot of opportunities now. It's not like I see every day.
Right.
And when I did see every day, we didn't have these conversations. And
no, we were
I
kids.
just wanted to tell you, you're smart, you're funny, and you're hardworking. You're likable. I don't, and I see that you're probably not. And sometimes maybe you need to be reminded of that. You know what I mean? And then you said, why? Well, why would I want to go and be look, man, being your station in life as far as employment goes means fuck all, right? But if it can make it a little bit easier on yourself, if cooking on a line doesn't mean and managing the line, there's no difference between them, but it makes it a little bit easier for yourself.
Hear you. And I've had opportunities in the past. I mean, I worked for Outback for almost a decade, and the plan with me was to eventually move into a kitchen management role, and then hopefully do well enough to get into the front of the house as a manager, and even possibly having my own store. And I did everything in my power to make sure that didn't happen. Yeah. And I don't understand why
it's a destructive urge, which is what Dave's saying. So,
right.
I mean, what is that? What is that? Anybody, any of you guys sound like you can answer to that question. What is it? Why is that destructive urge there?
Well, I know for me, self-love is something I never learned. Because I meet a lot of people that love themselves. Because I flat out ask, do you love yourself? Oh, yeah, absolutely. I love myself first and foremost. If I didn't love myself, I couldn't love anyone else. And I'm like, really? And then I drive home going, but I love a lot of people and don't love myself. All of my love is going to everyone else but myself. So how the fuck does that work? And then I pull the whole drinking game, which definitely has helped me go this whole time. And then with the drinking, you start to negotiate with yourself because you realize, holy shit, I am drinking a lot all the time. You know what I need to do? I need to cut that in half. Let's do that. All right, we'll do that. And the nights that I'm not fucking enjoying my wine, I'm like, okay, I'm good. I can handle this. This is good. Oh shit, is this a telltale sign? Do I got a problem? Fuck yeah, I have a problem. But what have I done? I haven't killed anyone yet. My relationships are still strong. And it's put some fucking weight on my stomach. I go in for the tests every year. Can you check my liver? Your liver's great. Oh shit, I have German stock. You know what that fucking means. I could Bukowski my ass well until I'm 90.
Yeah.
I don't want to, because I don't want to walk around with a fat fucking gut. And Charles had a big, giant belly. And that man suffered. But what did he do? He surrounded himself with beautiful women, which is what I've done. He drank, which is what I do. And he wrote, which, I ain't writing much.
Like it seems like all right, the drinking thing, although it's destructive, it sounds like it's a coping mechanism more to just to keep this sort of in the area in the orbit of melancholia here.
Right.
She
Oh,
destroy
thank you.
she destroys her life. You know what I mean? Like, and I've known people who are bipolar and depressive, and they've had actions where they've with on no uncertain terms done things that absolutely destroyed whole years and portions of their life. So I'm trying to figure out what that's about. Like Dave, it sounds like maybe you, like in your review.
What it's about, and I don't know if this makes sense to anybody, but it's for me. Oftentimes, it's about two things. It's about a sense of danger, right? Like this weird.
Is it mania? Is it tied in with
Yeah,
the mania?
it might be. I don't know, but it's like it's just like there's an element of risk and of danger, and what's going to happen if this happens?
Because
what are
you
the
don't.
consequences?
Is it because you don't believe that there's any meaning, and then something so dramatic might punctuate
Well,
something?
it's not even that. It's just that it's exciting. It's just that it's
Mhm.
like, oh wow, this is interesting, And I think the other part of it is just the weird way that I'm wired up, right? And I've had until now to think about it, about where I might differ from other people, and what it comes down to is that somehow I got it in my head that I'm almost like a character in a novel or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes when I'm making choices because I'm seeing arcs.
Mm-hmm.
There's almost two ways forward, right? There's the way that maybe you understand as a human being is the morally correct thing to do, and then there's the other way, which maybe isn't the right thing to do, but it's the more dramatically interesting thing to do. It's the thing the character in a really good novel that you'd like to read would do.
Because you're detached from yourself in a sense.
So that's what you do. You go, yeah, I'm gonna do the reckless yet interesting thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know somebody. I mean, we can't bring. I can't say his name exactly, but I mean, I know somebody who, basically, that's where the romance part falls into it, where you feel like you're living sort of like like you just said, you're like a legend or something like that. Like you're creating a legend for your own
Yeah,
life,
it's
and
building mythology, right?
Right.
Sure, for sure. There's a huge element of that, right? Because I realized from a very, very extremely young age, I've been writing stories, telling stories, all of my whole like from an absurdly young age, and I knew from an absurdly young age that it was really the only thing I was good at, and so that's what I was probably going to do with myself, and that just sort of leads to a whole bunch of other decisions where it's like, well, if I'm going to do that, you got to write what you know, then you've got to know you've got to have lived, you've got to have experienced some things.
Mm-hmm.
So, early in life, I made a lot of choices that were not necessarily the wise decisions in terms of my outcomes, but they were the dramatically interesting decisions to make.
Do any of you guys have like paralyzing depression where you can't like I think there's a difference between bipolar and manic depression, and then
Yeah,
like the downside of that is where you just can't leave your bed for weeks on end.
Oh yeah, I get that.
So that's the opposite of what you're just saying, right?
Yeah, but I get that huge now. Like now, that's a big thing. Like to get me out the door to an event or something like that.
Wow.
I'm horrible. I will decide not to go and have to get talked back into going like 5 or 10 different times. I will change my clothes. I don't know how many times. I will panic and just have an utter freak out.
Yeah, I still go through days, today, that I don't want to get out of bed sometimes, and I stay there. like even just like last week, like I had a day off and I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't leave the house all day. And it goes on in my family. Like my dad, I watched my dad go through it, like, you know, in his 40s where he just stopped going to work and just completely broke down. And then he eventually had a stroke, but he just stopped basically living life, and he just lived life at, you know, in his bedroom. And I've watched my uncle, his brother, I've seen, you know, he snapped out of it, but I watched him do it for a couple of years too.
It runs in my family too. My grandfather and my father, both my grandfather, my father's side, and my father, I saw them. They were both manic depressive.
Yeah.
And it frightens the hell out of me. And I don't know that I'm inflicted with it to any degree. I'm afraid that one day it's going to come down like a planet on me. But you know, seeing what happened with my father and my grandfather is pretty terrifying stuff. I mean, I've made conscious effort, like my whole mission in life essentially is not to be my father. You know what I mean? Like that's been, well, listen, my father was a good man. He was a good man in a lot of ways. Let's say that, you know, but he had some very terrible, really terrible qualities that, you know, the aftermath of me and my brother and my sisters are still just fucking coping with to this day. But I don't know. I guess this is leading to my next question, and Max, I guess maybe I'll throw this to you. Yeah. I mean,
so you have a few questions here, huh?
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, Tom. Do you want?
No. I'm
okay.
I'm interested. It's interesting to see that you have, you know, you're really, you know, you have some thoughts here and you have some questions.
Well, no, I'm curious. That's all.
Of course, that's awesome. Please.
And I know that you guys this is very close to all you guys, so I'm just curious. So,
yeah.
And I don't mean to be directing the show, Tom. I'm sorry.
Oh,
but
Jesus
okay.
Christ,
All right. So the question is, as like my way of dealing with this, and you know, I don't know that I'm affected. I don't want to say that I'm affected like you guys are to this, because it's not to that degree. I mean, I have minor ups and downs and manias and depressions and stuff. But like I said, my whole life, you know, I've had minor ups and downs. I don't know that it's as severe as what my father and my grandfather went through or what you guys are going through, but I've always been able to fight through not becoming my father, using my art as my outlet. So when I feel like I'm moving down up to a peak or down to a valley, I usually find a way to kind of like release it through, you know, creating something. And it's like an exercising of demons. Like in a lot of my stuff, it's really, you know, a lot of personal shit going in through my art. What I can't say if what I'm experiencing is anything close to what you guys are talking about, because I don't know if it's an emotional impulse or if it's a mental, cerebral, and I'm not sure how you're feeling about it, Max. Do you feel like it's something that's emotional or mental or cerebral?
I'm sorry, Joe. What's the question?
Do you feel like you're like the sickness or the depression and the mania is driven by emotion, like emotion or psychology or mental processes?
Can you ask it one more time? Because I didn't understand that at all.
I don't understand it either.
So is depression driven by emotional impulses, or is it something that's happening on a mental level, on a level that's more cerebral, psychological? Do you understand what I'm saying?
No.
I don't. I mean, I don't.
Dave, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I think I do. And I'm really struggling to come up with a way to frame it back to you to see if it makes any sense. But I think what you're trying to say is it sort of this irrational, impulsive, emotional kind of thing, or does it get down to the level where it sort of invades your thought process? So it's instead of having sort of this healthy, normal thought process where you'd say somebody said something negative around me, and normally my thought process might be, okay, did this person really direct it at me? No. Is it really about me? No. Okay, well, I'm not going to worry about it. Whereas if it had sort of gotten into my thought process, I might add another step in there that would involve me thinking maybe the guy's talking about me and feeling bad about it, or whatever the case is.
Yeah, well, I'm trying, it's not something that you can reason out or reason away, I guess is what it comes down to. Like, it's not something that you can logically rationalize or reason away. It's something that happens on a different level than than the process of your thoughts and your reason, right?
What the fuck is what?
Oh, God, it's very difficult for me to
Can
like
you
if you have an issue, like if there's a problem in your life, right? And there's a way, like say there's some sort of dilemma or problem, and you can approach it rationally and try to get around the dilemma and explain it to yourself. Whereas I feel like if it's something that's in depression,
Joe, Joe, let me help you out.
okay,
You guys are jibber jabbering, and the wax is melting in my ears.
okay.
I'm trying so hard to understand. Are you trying to say, like, okay, let's say I have a debilitating self filter that I am constantly scrutinizing myself in a very negative way. Are you saying that? Are you asking me, rather, if I have the ability to recognize that and therefore somehow survive in this world? But because you started out talking about creativity, and then it derailed into things that I can't even.
Well, I'm just, what I think it is that it's very difficult to define exactly what the cause of depression is and what the solution is. How do you come out of a depression and what causes it? Do you know what I'm saying? So when you're in a funk, sometimes you could sort of reason it out. Well, why am I upset? And then you can go through a chain of events rationally and then rationalize with yourself about what it is that made you upset. And then you could sort of work it through with a chain of thought.
Right. I think I had a fuck sandwich, okay? Briefly, Dad died before I was born. I was in Mom's womb when that happened. I was born. Mom was too depressed to handle it, so Grandma's kind of raised me. She met a stepdad, or rather a new husband who became the first stepdad. He didn't understand anything, so he was verbally, physically abusive to us. And then by the time I was 12, I was so fucked all the way around the world. Not to mention the fact that it was a chemical thing, I believe, from day one. So I had the chemical thing in my head. I had the fucked stepdad. I had the dead dad. I had Mom, who was a disaster, but doing her very best as she could. So by the time I entered my teenage years, that was probably the time I was able to take a breath and realize that all of this horrendous, awful shit that happened to me in my pivotal first decade of life, I may be able to summon up the power to not let it destroy me in my teen years. So I kind of had to take life decade by decade. Is that close?
Yeah, listen, man. I think that I live in a bit of fear of not understanding things, and I need to try to understand things, and that's
but it's weird that you say that, because to me, you have such an incredible brain that does nothing but absorb everything.
Right, and depression to me is, and I think this is actually part of the movie as well. Depression and these things are frightening to me, right, because of what I saw when I was a child. And I don't want something like that to happen to me. So I've always tried to understand where it came from. And if it starts to come down on me, I start to try to rationalize it in one way or another. And that becomes a mental process. But I think that depression is more, when it comes, it's more chemical, like you're saying, or emotionally driven,
Yeah, but Joe, you have the luxury.
More, you know what I mean?
I know. But you know what you get to say, Joe? You get to say when it comes. You don't have it all the time.
Right.
You don't have it every single day porously of your life. Mm-hmm. It comes in waves for you. That is extraordinary. And you have to consider yourself extremely lucky and blessed that it isn't a thing that is there, embedded.
You live with it every day.
every fucking day.
Oh.
The darkness is inescapable, Joe. It's inescapable.
Yeah, I
It's so-
gotta agree with Max. Our childhood, everything is similar except I didn't have the dead dad. I had a deadbeat dad who wasn't around, which is a big difference in where we're coming at mentally. But everything else is similar, Max. Everything, and he's right, man. It's just there. That darkness is there every single day, no matter how hard you try to shake it. It doesn't leave you, and it's killer, man.
Yeah.
And that's why we all have such, I think, great senses of humor. I mean, seriously, the most pained fuckers are the funniest, and I think you guys are hilarious.
Yeah, and speaking of sense of humor, we're going to try to bring in Giuseppe Andrews in about 10 minutes to talk to. Hey, guys, I do want to spend a couple minutes on Lars von Trier. Joe, I know that you're a big fan of this dude because, hey, if there's anything I'm learning about you, you totally love these self-indulgent filmmakers.
Did you find the self-indulgent?
Oh, way too much.
Really?
Almost annoyingly so.
Wow.
Yeah, I just, I had that same kind of like Fellini feel when I was watching a movie where it's just too self-indulgent. It's like I get it, I get the fact that like he's just trying to make you feel. He's trying to like give you a mood as opposed to concentrating so much on story. And I get all that, but it's just way too much for me. I just can't get into it. And the one thing I do want to ask you too, Joe, is that does this guy have a history of just using like, I don't want to say bad lighting, but just bad lighting and like awful camera work?
Oh man, that's the Dogma stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Dave. Do you find this movie?
No,
I'll let you feel that, man. No, you go ahead. I want to hear.
10 minutes.
I want to hear who's on my side here. Or do you find this movie too self-indulgent to the point where I hate? Oh, wait, hold on. I'm gonna let you respond to it, Dave. But I just want to say I hate fucking the word self-indulgent. I think it's fucking ridiculous. I mean, I think if anybody is, I'm sorry, Tom, I don't want to argue with you, but
I thought you said you weren't going to argue with anyone.
I know. Jesus Christ, I don't want to go there.
I understand it's an extreme word, and I know, Joe.
But because listen, here's how I feel.
Everything. I understand what you're saying.
The most sublime things are found deep within the individual. So the most greatest truth has to be mined down to the thing that is most unique about the artist who's making the work. So the best things are, and self-indulgent is such it's an insult, you know what I mean? Where it should actually be badge of honor and something courageous.
But there are filmmakers but there are filmmakers out there that are incredibly self-indulgent that just don't, that just have the right idea.
Think about all of the greatest.
Like Sean Penn is a self-indulgent filmmaker.
Okay, well let me just throw a couple of self-indulgent filmmakers who I think are brilliant. Woody Allen,
absolutely. Albert Brooks,
yeah,
absolutely.
Like almost every Jewish comedian or writer, whatever, because they have that neurosis or whatever. Fellini, Ingmar Bergman, like all these great fucking. I love the works, and maybe it's just because like I'm what Sarah's saying. I'm just an asshole. Maybe I'm just trying to prove something to everybody that I'm smart, like Sarah Brooks says. But I just anyway. I hate that because I think. The bravest thing that Charles Bukowski, I think the bravest thing anybody could do is look deep inside of yourself for the thing that makes you unique and to bring it back and to push it out there to show people. And in doing that, you show how universal these truths are because they pass through the filter of the individuals. And that's why I take such offensive to that word of self-indulgent. But I understand what you're saying. I guess it never even crossed my mind with this film, but Dave, can you comment? Can you give me your thoughts on
it was self-indulgent. I'll straight up say it was self-indulgent, but I'll add to that depression itself is self-indulgent. In that way, the film continues to be entirely consistent with the experience of depression and with the experience of dealing with somebody who has depression. You're not always sympathetic to Justine. Sometimes you hate her guts. Sometimes you think she's a spoiled bitch. Like you do experience a wider range of feelings with her, and there's sometimes when the movie is really, really fucking over the top melodramatic, and you're just like, oh my god, that's what it's like. It's exactly what it's like, and people make these dramatic gestures and get all weird and crazy, and it's just how it works.
Max, where are you coming in?
I thought it was an extremely masterful work of art. I was really surprised by it. This was the
Are you
second
reading
time...
something?
No! But I'm totally thrown off now.
Well,
Huh? Oh. I thought some of the handheld camera work was annoying.
Yeah. Well, listen, goes back to this dogma thing. He set all these rules, and yeah, listen, the guy's a little bit pretentious.
I forgot to speak to that. Yeah.
Yeah. The guy, like Dave brought up, they came out in like I think 95 or 93 or something like that. They came up with a series of like 10 rules not to break, and one had to do with natural lighting. All this bullshit. It's pretentious nonsense, right?
That's hard to believe.
I try not to fucking pay attention to it at all, but I will say that I always find this film, and you know what? I think they systematically broke every one of those rules, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, over the years for sure.
Listen, I try not to pay any attention to the filmmakers except for their films in many ways, and I will say that I always find his stuff interesting, as sometimes tedious as it can be. But this one, I thought it reached out a bit to an audience. Like I didn't think it was as abstruse as some of his other stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, I heard it did really well in Brooklyn.
I'll tell you what, guys. My wife and a very dear friend of mine who is a female, who I thought would really personally relate to this film, has avoided it up until now because it might hit too close to home. And so I think that infected my wife a little bit, and she was really hesitant to see the film. And she said, well, I'll watch it with you, but I might multitask during it. Well, she didn't, and she got really, really into it. And I was very, very proud of her because I think the feminine energy of this film, the men in this thing are so utterly grotesque.
Yeah.
And so horrifying. I mean, listen, I have to talk about the end. I have to.
Sure.
So if you don't want to hear about the end of this film, stop listening for a few minutes. Kiefer Sutherland spends the entire fucking film in love with Melancholia and as the leader of science, and he's got the telescope and he's got all the facts, and he's just like, oh, he's going to be the fucking hero. Well, guess what? This piece of shit shits his fucking pants, and they keep pills on standby. They're going to take all these pills and kill themselves before Melancholia hits. What does this guy do? What does this motherless fuck do? He takes the pills and he kills himself, and now they're stuck fucked. And what do the two sisters have to do? They have to go inside a stick teepee with the boy and give him that beautiful, feminine, safe energy. It's all going to be okay. All that mothering love, all that sisterly love, all that auntie love, what the fuck ever, and fill that boy with love. That's what they have to do before they're annihilated. Are you kidding me? I thought that was one of the most magnificently emotionally powerful statements about womanhood. And I don't know what is up with this Von Trier. This guy's a fucking maniac. But he makes movies. He makes movies that grab me in the balls, and he makes beautiful films about women. I can't sit through this Dogville because I hear animals are hurt during it. But I gotta see it. I have to see this Dogville. It's the only one I haven't seen.
That's the Nicole Kidman one, right? I think she's in it. Yeah, it's a good film. Listen, everything that he makes is interesting enough to watch. As tedious as it is, it's just nice because it's something unique and something that's unique to him. But it's interesting because that you say how nice it portrays women in this film, but he's been accused of being a misogynist in the past for some of his past works. You know what I mean?
Come on! Didn't Claire play Willem's wife in Antichrist?
Well, I mean, I think that he's equating melancholy and depression with women, like as woman's domain.
Well,
like in the
sure.
Film. Right. So I think that in a way, one interpretation of the film could be that the women and their melancholy is bringing down the end of this world. Right.
God bless him for that. Maybe we can start over.
But that said, I mean, he does.
I think that's accurate. I think that's. I mean, that's pretty much what I was thinking.
But I mean, he does portray. Max is right. On the other hand, as well, is that he does portray them quite beautifully, and really, the villain is the dude, the father. You know, Kiefer Sutherland character.
Yeah.
Dave, you beg to differ.
Oh, I don't necessarily beg to differ. I mean, that's one way to see the movie for sure. I don't necessarily think it's the way to see the movie, but it's one way to see it.
Okay.
Guys, we have so much more depression to talk about tonight. I don't want to put, how do you say it, all of our eggs into one basket. So
you don't want to blow your depression wad?
No, because it's so. I mean, this is just a third. This is just the third. We got two more very depressing films to talk about, which is going to lead to so much more talk about depression. We might even talk about the Great Depression. That's how depressing it is. So,
Tom, do you see your powers?
No.
That's a great line.
Let's get out of town.
It's good.
Oh, you're stupid with your
Cheesy.
fucking shaved head.
But I'm going to go around the table like I usually do at the end of our segment. And by the way, I want to tell our fans that we intend to bring Giuseppe Andrews in tonight. He's once again disappeared from Skype. So if he's here, he's here. If not, we're just going to continue to move on right into our classic review theme. So we'll keep you posted on that. Guys, rent, buy, or avoid. Let's start with Pace.
I'm going to say buy it, probably watch it once, and maybe never watch it again. I'm that way with Antichrist. I think it's a brilliant film, but I'll probably never watch it again. I had no real intention of watching Melancholia again after I watched it again today, but I'm glad I did. So buy it because it's brilliant. It's an absolutely incredible piece of filmmaking. I'm not sure you're going to watch it much, though.
What are you doing, Christiana?
I think it's a beautiful film. I listen, if you're a DVD collector and you've collected good films, I'd say that this is a buy. I actually really enjoyed watching it for the second time here, David. I thank you for that. I actually picked up on a lot of.
Yeah, so did I, actually.
You know what I mean?
I was.
Yeah, I was able to sort of connect the two halves of the picture together a lot clearer, with a lot more clarity this time around than I sort of the relationship between the Kristen Dunst character and the planet really made sense to me on the second viewing. So, but anyway, yeah, I think it's a buy if you're a DVD collector for sure.
Max Cook, talk to me.
Well, I'm with the boys as far as the second viewing. So much more beneficial, and I loved this film the first time, except for the handheld camera in the first half, in the Justine half. But I think this film is so catastrophic that you only need to rent it. I would probably buy it, but I'm a masochist, and I would probably watch it again and again, and I would wallow in it, which might not be a good thing.
You know, I was really. It's hard for me to tell anyone to avoid this movie just because I didn't like it, so I'm not going to do that. But it's definitely worth watching. It's on Netflix streaming. I think it's worth checking out. It's not my cup of tea. I'm not into what Lars von Trier is trying to do. I will say this. I really need to go and watch a couple more of his films to really get a more complete idea. But from this film, I really, I'm not really into it. Yeah, Joe.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if you don't like this film, you're probably not gonna like the other stuff. I know you hate when I say that, Tom, but I think
that's fine.
I
looked at his picture on IMDb, and I think I'm gonna stay away from him.
I think you should. Well, that said, I think if you want to give him one other shot, is Antichrist.
Yeah.
Okay. I will.
Yeah.
How have we not talked about Antichrist on this show?
I don't know.
We were getting there. It was one of the ones that was coming up when we were still a horror show. But
Chaos reigns, Tom.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. That is insane.
Hey guys, it looks like Mr. Andrews is just not around. So I mean, are we gonna
Let's cut him loose. Sorry it didn't work out.
Well, you know what I'm thinking we could do is we could just advertise that where we booked our special guest is Giuseppe Andrews' personal assistant.
Yeah, she made an appearance on
Yeah,
this.
she did.
Let's make a bumper with that spot in it. It'll
We
be
could
like
play
the
a-
Harrison Ford scene in Bruno.
Yeah. Oh man, and that reminds me, guys.
Fuck
You know,
off.
real quick before we move on to the classic review team, we got to start getting some of these guests to do bumpers. You know?
Oh, yeah. This is Pat Healy, and you're listening to The Cutting Room.
Yeah.
We're
Absolutely.
stupid.
Yes. Very stupid.
Right? I guess.
This is Brian Yuzna. You're listening to The Cutting Room.
Oh, so dumb.
I know. Tell me about it.
Who's producing this goddamn show?
Well, we need to kick each other in the ass, guys.
Who's
And,
driving this shit heap?
oh, I got this one probably would have been the best one. I'm Matt Farnsworth, and you're listening to The Cutting Room.
Hey, Farnsey, where's my Blu-ray, baby?
Yeah. Oh boy. Could you imagine? Could you imagine being that dude?
He's not depressed.
No.
No, he's not, man. Motherfuckers like him. And this is why I'm telling you, this is another reason he got under my skin. It's just because people like him get under my skin. It's these people who, no matter what they do in life, they're going to have some level of success, and they're going to have some level of not having any self-awareness and not having any self-consciousness. And that fucking makes me crazy. It makes me crazy because he can, it's just those people win.
He's like he's like that dude, the guy who was walking around in his underwear and naked.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, man.
Oh, that guy's great.
It's totally like that, but that's what happens to those people, right? Like they fail upwards or something.
He plays kind of like the same kind of
Fail upwards. That's great.
that dude in Naked, and we're going to talk about Naked in just a couple minutes. He's also in 2 Days in the Valley, and he plays kind of like a real pompous asshole in that movie too, and he's great.
Yeah.
And then he just like dropped off the map. I think he stopped acting, like Giuseppe Andrews.
Yeah.
Hi, Giuseppe. How you doing tonight?
Tom, why am I not on the show? I thought I was going to be on the show. I don't make films no more. We will not talk about those things. I will not speak to you of Edward Norton's. I will only speak to you of short films, poetry, and songs. Would you like to hear one of my
I
songs?
would love to hear. Guys, what do you say? You want to hear something from Giuseppe Andrews?
Let's go for it.
All right.
My ball bag is sticking to my inner thigh. My ball bag is sticking to my inner thigh. My ball bag is sticking to my inner thigh. Whoosh! I just removed it from my inner thigh.
Oh, that was so beautiful, man.
Very nice.
Thank you so much, Giuseppe.
Thank you, Tomas. Thank you, Joseph. And thank you, Bonelli. And now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go be pretentious on my website.
Okay. Hey, thanks for dropping by the cutting.
I'm sorry! Self-indulgence.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to our classic review theme, and it's depression. if you haven't heard, we're gonna kick things off with Naked. Mr. Joe Christiana is gonna give you the introduction, and our very good friend, Cool Claude, is gonna cue his music. Take it away, Claude.